You got one life, for crying out loudly. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jourdan.
Then you don't got to worry about selling anymore because they're just too busy buying. What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the sales energizer, Dan Jourdan.
Ha!
Well, you have outdone yourself, Mr. Producer Man.
You know, while you were away, Dan, running around the city of Atlanta, selling to people, I found purple and white, and I hired an interior designer for this thing. What do you think?
Yeah, you killed it. I mean, this is awesome. Over the top, Stu Shapiro
Stu
said.
Shapiro loves the new look. He thinks it's over the top.
He's a big fan, but this is a big thing for me. I need to get revved up every day about something, and we got this whole kind of sky theme here. I'm in the global, the global headquarters today. But you know what I did today? You don't know this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got a friend at Iger, who we'll be talking about a little later. They do internet marketing and things like that, digital marketing. They're helping out the Deej with all this stuff. But one of the people there has an airplane, and like a real airplane, the kind of airplane that flies in the sky. And he took me up. I was flying today.
Wait a minute. You were not flying you weren't actually steering the plane.
I was piloting an aircraft. Once we hit a certain level, he said this because it's really cool. You're not allowed to just, there's only one person can be a pilot. And so you have to say things, pilots like me, we know this thing. So, for the laymen out there that are not as experienced as I with my discovery call, the pilot has to say, okay, your plane. So I have to say, my plane. And he says, okay, it's your plane. And then he walks away, and here I am flying around. Unbelievable. And, of course, when I landed, he said, good job, because he wants me to become a student and all that stuff. But he said, you were really good. And the reason why he said you were really good is because, if you let the plane on its own, it will take you where it wants to go. You have to lead the plane. And I thought to myself, this is just like Beth Miller.
Okay. All right. You're right. Okay. Before, I know that felt like a segue, right?
Yes. It was a slight segue.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we should probably do a proper introduction for Beth. But before you do that, if I can get this straight, you were allowing this person to sell to you. That was a sales job from this pilot because he wants to sell his services to you.
Inspire is a flight school here in Atlanta. If you have even a thought that you might want to command the sky in the airway, be like Superman. If you even thought about that in your life, you got to go see Inspire over there at PDK Airport. They're awesome, and they have. If you sign up with them, they'll give you a real Yeti, like a real like a good a drinking Yeti. Have you ever put ice in a Yeti? And left it outside? 3 months later, the ice is still in there.
It's a good thing it's not a Yeti microphone because you already have one of those. I'm not a huge fan of.
Oh, that's right. You hate the Yeti microphone.
Now can we get to our special guest? Because I can't wait for this. Is going to be great. I'm excited about this one.
I need someone to set me straight about leadership, and it's true because I think, and this is the way I was brought up by a European father who screamed a lot, that a leader is equated to volume, and so, just the louder you are, the bigger leader you are. That's what I was taught growing up. I've since realized after marriage that that's not exactly the case, but I'm looking forward to get some professional advice from a real leader who's going to visit with us today.
Let's bring her on. Hey, Beth, how are you?
Good. How are you? How are you?
I am the dream.
So I was chuckling in the background when you were talking about going up in a plane, because about 25 years ago, I decided I wanted to learn how to fly. I probably went up maybe 10 times, and it was in the summer, and the air up there was so hot. I was getting nauseous. I
Oh, yeah, not a good
said,
place.
You know what? This is just not for me. I did pass the written test, but I never got to the solo. And I thought, I will leave it up to the professionals, and small planes to this day. I'm okay with a big, 737, but the small ones, no. Not so much.
Really? Oh, you see, I loved it. We had a little turbulence today and wind and everything.
No.
And he had to land. And when you have to land with the crosswind, we were kind of going in sideways. Like it was very exciting.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes,
and I'm
that's
glad
good.
I wasn't up there with you.
But that's important. So you actually started and you invested money and you were dedicated to do it. And but the pain of the ride was greater than your desire to be a pilot.
Right. A lesson here in leadership is, really follow your strengths and surround yourself with people that will overcome your weaknesses. And my strength is not being up in a small plane.
Well, so that leads to a question, and I know Chris Stone is chomping at the bit to ask you something, but that begs a question. Do you have? I know you teach leadership, right? You help people who are in different positions become leaders. Mm-hmm. Do you ever find one of them who thought they wanted that position, and during the process of your coaching, they realized, hey, I'm not meant to be a pilot. I'm getting nauseous up here.
I would say no, but there were a number of them that weren't self-reflective and self-aware enough to realize that they really weren't that good, and they weren't willing to work on it. A lot of leadership is around emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence you can learn. It's not like IQ. EQ you can learn, but it stretches you. And the individuals that I've worked with who were really goal-oriented and driven and wanted to be that great leader overcome their shortcomings as it related to self-awareness and self-management and relationship management and empathy.
Well, go on if you would. Give me an example, a juicy one if you can.
A juicy one of...
You don't have to use names. We can make up names.
Never use names. I'm a coach. I don't use names.
You can use Chris.
Yeah,
That's
John Schmelz.
So I'll use one where it was very successful. The woman was a high potential in a very technical field, and the CEO called me in because she had kind of gone off the rails emotionally through interacting with another department. And so I ran some assessments on her, and I realized that she was highly competitive and goal-driven. And she was, the very first meeting I had with her, she was highly committed to making changes. She realized that she needed to make changes, or else she wasn't going to be able to progress to that next level. That was about 3 years ago. And today she's gone up 2 rungs in the organization and now reports directly to the CEO. So that's one of those situations where I knew immediately that this was going to be really successful. Then on the flip side, I'm called in, and there are situations where within the first meeting, I realized that this isn't going to be productive for me or the individual, and I'll have a conversation.
What happened? And I hate to interrupt, but what happened in that meeting to let you know right off the bat that wasn't a good fit?
Right. So there was the meeting, and then there was a follow-up. Okay. So the meeting, I was reading his face and his body language, and I realized he was getting a little defensive. And as I dug, it kind of came out that he felt like that being coached was not a reward, but
interesting.
punishment. Yeah.
Wow. He wasn't seeing the benefit. He felt like you were just critiquing him, and it became something that he got defensive over. Interesting.
It was more about how it was set up in the organization, that his manager set it up as you need to be fixed, versus hey, there's some areas here that you've got some gaps. We want to fill those gaps so that we can get you to that next level. So, and then from a follow-up perspective, I'd send him emails and I'd get crickets. And so I had a follow-on conversation with his manager. I'm like, I don't think he's going to get much out of this. And
got it. Now you said his name was Doug, right? Well, yeah. And so you said his name was Doug, and he needed to be fixed. So what do you do when your wife always wants you to be fixed? I mean, it sounds like you're married. That's what wives do. So do us a favor. What I'd like you to do is, just based on body language and posture, I'd like you to analyze Chris.
Is this somebody that's possibly named Chris or me?
Yeah. See if
I think
Chris
he's pointing you out, Chris.
Yeah, what do you think of Chris and his managerial capabilities?
Well,
wait, let me adjust myself. How's that? Born leader?
No, I mean, obviously, first of all, he's got a smile on his face, so he looks like he's having a good time. That would be number one.
This is a good time.
Yeah, I mean, if I get that kind of blank stare, obviously that's a warning that I don't think I'm going to get very far with that individual. Yeah.
Really? So now, what if that's just nerves, though? And I'm thinking this in terms of, because you and we're dealing with a lot of people right now that may be in transition.
Right.
Highly educated, successful people who have had, long careers with a particular company, find themselves on the outs for a myriad of reasons, and now are interviewing for positions. Possibly, they've only done this 2 times in their entire lives.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're nervous as all get out. That's
true. That's very true. When it comes to interviewing, that is definitely true. And if you think about it from a coaching perspective, me coming in and meeting somebody that hasn't met me before, I do take, believe me, that first meeting, basically there's red flags. But I don't immediately call the manager. I give the individual a couple more meetings to see if there's progress. But I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty right based on my intuition and experience after that first meeting. That it generally.
So I've got a question. So we've talked a lot about like maybe some issues and some body language and some things that would potentially be red flags for someone that would be a leader. What are the types of things that you could identify and look for when you're speaking to people that make them good leaders? What are some things that people could because there's so many things there's leadership podcasts and leadership books, and you'll find the person that influences you and whatnot, and everybody has their formula and the top 10 things that make a great leader and all of those things. I'd love to know from you, like, what would you consider are some of those traits for good leaders?
First of all, listening skills, being able to listen to others and asking really good questions. The leaders that, in fact, getting back to the woman that I mentioned to you, one of her issues was that she talked a lot. And so we worked on, especially in meetings, getting her to pull back and not be the first person to participate, but to facilitate the discussion and allow others to weigh in on problems and decisions before she weighed in. What she didn't realize, she was, a lot of new leaders believe that they should be solving all the problems.
Mm.
And the problem with that is that they are then creating a situation where their employees will continue to come to them with problems. Because guess what? I know that Beth is going to solve that problem. Versus coaching in the moment, where somebody comes to you with a problem and then start asking questions like, well, what have you tried so far?
Mm-hmm.
What options do you have that maybe you haven't tried? And the point is that you are teaching them how to fish and not throwing them fish, so that they will then, over time, not be coming to you with problems because they can solve their own problems.
Right. Wow.
That's good. You know what? When we first got you, I'm so glad that we got you on the show, because, by the way, you showed your leadership qualities. You actually put something out, say you have a goal to be on 5 podcasts over the next month. And by the way, did you accomplish your goal?
Yes, and some.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got a bunch lined up this month as well.
You see, that's just a lesson that nobody would have known that had you not just put it out there and done it. And the people that you didn't get podcasts on, you wouldn't have gotten on their podcast anyway. So, I mean, you literally had nothing to lose. So when you got on the show, I knew that you were smart, but now I think you're just brilliant. That whole listening comment is all anybody needs to know.
It's one of the critical ones. I think the other one that leaders don't do enough of, they are really willing to give feedback to others, but they don't ask for feedback enough. And I find this a lot right now during this extraordinary COVID experience, where
Dan, she said it.
Oh, I'm sorry, we don't use that word on the
Beth,
show.
it's been a wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
You know, we need like one of those horns or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
I'm sorry,
the
go ahead.
virus that shall not be named.
During the time that we are working from home virtually, that a lot of leaders are dealing with employee well-being. There are moms that are at home trying to teach their kids while they're working. There's single people that are all of a sudden working from home and they have nobody else to talk to. So there's a lot of care and feeding that leaders are having to do now. But what they're not doing is they're kind of like they're assuming what the person needs.
Wow.
Versus asking for feedback. What kind of support can I give you that I'm not giving you right now?
Wow.
What can I be doing differently?
Right.
That I'm
So
not doing?
why do you think that people don't do that? I mean,
I think part of it is that leaders believe that they should know everything. So asking an employee, gosh, what could I be doing differently? Shouldn't I know that? I think part of it's an ego thing.
It's vulnerability, 100%. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but for me, when I look at thought leaders and leadership in terms of business, it comes up all the time. It's if you want to be able to lead people and lead people up a hill, and you're going to have to be vulnerable. And and sometimes that means showing that you don't know and working through it with them, and vulnerability. And once you show that you are vulnerable, you're a real person, I think that absolutely helps you as a leader.
I totally agree, Chris. Yeah.
I have as I do about most things, I have a hypothesis.
Okay.
And but I'm fully comfortable with being wrong.
All right.
But I think the reason why people don't want to do that and ask those tough questions and get those tough answers or feel awkward is because of a lack of what's something that I think is the most important thing in a human being, just a lack of courage. Because, being vulnerable, like we just spoke about, it takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to take feedback and not get defensive about it. And it takes courage to be able to say, I don't know everything.
Right.
Which is idiotic because, how could anybody know
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, not everybody's such an experienced pilot as myself. I understand that. But, nobody could know everything.
No, but you're right. Courage is kind of underlying that vulnerability. That there are a lot of leaders that kind of put that shield up.
So what I'd like to do in the second half of this, and maybe we could hear from our friends in between, Chris, but what I'd like to do in the second half is for you, being the experienced teacher and nurturer and coach and professional that you are, give us some tools that we can become better leaders, things we can do today or tomorrow or next week, things that you have seen work in the past.
So
let's pause right there. Let's hear from our friends at Liger, and then Beth will answer that on the other side.
Here at Liger Partners, we are marketing as a service. So what we do is we overlay marketing with high-level strategy, we go into branding, and we finish with execution. For the same price as having someone in-house dedicated to your marketing, which we call a unicorn marketer. We know they don't exist, but we hope that you'll discover that as well. You could have a whole team of Ligers experienced in their own arenas of marketing, whether that be writing, whether that be design or video, podcasting, strategy. All of those arenas we have people for. Visit us today at ligerpartners.com and see what we can do for your business.
Hey, that was good. By the way, that guy who you just saw there on that little video there, that was the guy who took me up in the airplane today.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was a kid. He's he's 20 something, and he's like the most trustworthy. That kid is going. Know that boy, because he's going places.
I'm actually coaching Hamilton.
Oh, you see, before Beth Miller got a hold of Hamilton, he was like a turtle in a shell, and he couldn't move.
Now he's flying planes. He's the star of commercials.
Not quite, but he is a very self-reflective guy. He's very self-reflective.
Yeah, he does Bible studies too on Friday morning.
Yes,
This is the Hamilton show, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
So that's basically your advice for people who want to become leaders is just be more like Hamilton.
There's no cookie cutter approach.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that, leaders, or what I call high potentials, those individuals that are identified by current leaders that they believe can move into a leadership position. Potential is very different than performance. Performance is pretty easy to measure. You've got a job description, you've got metrics, and you measure performance against those. Potential is different, and each company needs to understand what leadership potential looks like to them. And before some of the key areas that companies look for are things like being able to adjust to change, even when you don't have control of that change. That would be one thing. Building relationships, not just directly within your department, but across departments, so that you can create collaboration and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be things. Some core things also are resilience, being able to push through challenges and not feel defeated, but being creative to figure out how to get around those.
Well, but how do you do that? I mean, I'm just thinking about someone, again, that fictitious person that I made up before, who was on top of the world 6 months ago, and now, and especially, I'm not thinking mainly about men, because I know men.
Because you're a guy.
Yeah, and I'm self-reflective enough to realize that I don't understand women at all, but I know, guys, that we kind of value our own self-worth by our production and by our jobs. And so if I'm not working, I am worth less, which is worthless.
Right.
So how do I get out of that and be the person I was, even though I was that before? I don't know what to do.
Are you talking from a standpoint of somebody that's looking for another job that's recently?
Yeah, or job or a promotion or something. I need to stop looking as desperate as I feel.
Okay. Well, if you are looking desperate, then there's that kind of comes over and across to emotional intelligence.
Uh-huh.
How are you managing your emotions and presenting yourself to the public? So that's an emotional intelligence.
All right. Well, so are there any tools that you can offer to our worldwide audience here?
So when I'm working with leaders on emotional intelligence, I actually use a book by Travis Bradberry called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Highly recommend it. What it does is it allows you to go out and self-assess yourself. So you get a benchmark. And then I work with them to create a plan to increase their emotional intelligence. And then 6 months to a year later, you can retake the assessment. So you can see how you've improved. So that would be one direction I would take as it relates to emotional intelligence, is get the book, take the assessment, put together some SMART goals, find what I call an EQ mentor. And an EQ mentor is somebody who is strong in that specific area of emotional intelligence that you're wanting to improve on. So if it's, for instance, self-management, which is around managing your emotions, like the woman I talked to you about earlier, she found somebody in the organization who was very good at that and had some time and was willing to mentor her along with the goals that she had set up.
First of all, you have a book also, don't you?
I do.
What a segue, Dan. I was just I'm sorry. I'm posting the link for Emotional Intelligence by Travis Bradberry. Is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk about your book. Sorry.
Well, you see that? Yeah, you see that? You see that? There's a world-class producer right there. He's on top of things.
Yes, and my book is called "Are You Talent Obsessed?" And it focuses on leaders and what you need to do to attract and retain great talent.
Oh, for your company.
Yeah, for your company. And it's a short book. It's available both on Kindle as well as paperback, and it doesn't take very long. One of the things that I learned from another author that I know is he did a lot of research before he wrote his book, and he found out that executives generally only read the first 100 pages of a book.
Wow.
Ah.
Yeah. So he wrote a book that was 100 pages. He's checking it.
Checking his
By
own
the
book.
way,
aren't you?
Sales Proverbs, 110 pages.
There you go.
You see that?
I'm
a natural. I'm a natural book writing leader.
You're natural something, Dan, and that's awesome. So you were talking a little bit about challenges, and we're obviously in the midst of a challenge that shall not be named. What are some challenges that right now, and you're talking to a lot of different leaders, what are some challenges that they're facing right now, and how are you working with them to overcome them?
Yeah. So there's kind of two parts to that question. One is their own challenges as a leader, and then the challenges that they're having in their organization. So I first focus on the person, because if they're not presenting themselves in a way of strength as well as encouragement, then the rest of it is kind of moot. So, there are a lot of things that I've talked to them about in order to kind of decrease stress.
Mm-hmm.
Things like practicing gratitude on a daily basis.
Oh, that's good.
And meditation. There's one of my favorite apps is the Calm app. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. Love that app. I've used it a lot more recently than I have in the past. But that's a great app to teach you how to meditate. Then it's like taking walks and
physical is as much about the spiritual and all of that tied together, for sure. I totally agree.
I go to a guy for meditation. His name is Jack Daniels. And what happens is you just kind of go right to sleep. Now, I do have a question, however. Do you find more success with doing all the tools that you're talking about with women or with men? Or is it equal?
It's
humans.
It's not gender. It's gender neutral.
Gender neutral. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, in Atlanta here, where we all are, but the rest of the car buying public maybe in other places, we're working here, baby. We're out and about. We're done with this whole process. Everybody's putzing around, dealing with the whole thing. We're done with it over here. We're just rocking on.
Yeah.
Are you wearing? You're not wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask.
Well, I do when I go to the grocery store.
I don't wear squat. And by the way, before
you're the kind of guy that I start going, he's not wearing a mask.
Yeah, let him grunt. I know, let him do that. But here's the thing. Before this little arrangement that we're on right now, this live cast, I didn't wash my hands. Did you wash yours?
Yeah, I did actually.
Oh,
I wash them a lot now.
Do you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm having to put hand cream on all the time. Yeah.
Really? Yeah,
Yes.
I haven't got to the hand cream yet. What scent is your hand cream?
There's no scent to it. I don't like the scented hand cream.
My mother used to use Ponds, Ponds. Have you ever heard of that? It's like, and I remember it being like next to the bedside, this Ponds. I'm like, why do we always have this Ponds things here? And they would put hand cream. I don't know if I've ever put hand cream on. Though in the wintertime, my hands in New Jersey especially, they would kind of crust over and bleed and all that stuff. Yeah, you've ever had my knuckles
dry.
Yeah, so you'd have to put cream on. But I never wanted to put cream on because I was afraid to smell like my mother. Because all I knew from the hand cream was the Ponds on the side. So you didn't think that this would come around, but I'm such an experienced orator that I was able to bring it all together.
You did.
Think of that.
I think what's so wrong with smelling like your mother? What's wrong with that, Dan? There's nothing wrong with smelling like your mother.
You know what? I tell you what, I looked in the mirror the other day, and I saw my father looking back at me. I mean, exactly my father, like my expression. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like good. I find Chris, I know you're going through some issues now. Is everything okay, by the way,
Everything's okay.
with your dad?
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
good.
Thank you.
So my dad died a few years ago, and before he died, let me tell you when I first realized that you had to take a leadership role. So when I had my first business when I was like 18, and I took college, but I had a deli. It was a butcher shop. I turned into a deli, DJ's Country Deli, and I sold it when I was like 25 for it was $170,000 when I was 25 years old. And my dad was an immigrant. He never saved anything. He was always, kind of making deals, and he never really paid into Social Security. Never did any of that stuff like that. So he never had much savings. I took all that money and I invested it, and that money, I didn't take a penny of it, paid for my dad's retirement for the rest of his life. And it was
wow.
the proudest moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was the proudest thing, but it changed our relationship. Hey, put everybody else on here. I don't want to, I look like I'm just talking about, yeah, it changed our relationship. Not that he was, at any point, subservient or anything like that, but it was just much more eye to eye, even more so than I was comfortable with.
Ah, okay.
So I'm asking you to psychoanalyze me. I'm having deep. The reason
I am
why
not a therapist. Sorry.
Okay. The reason why I brought this up is I looked in the mirror and I saw my dad or what have you. So when I think of my dad and I want to, get some advice, or when I'm in, that kind of reminiscing mode or what have you, I find myself eating the foods that I know he liked. It was like, I never eat, I'm trying to think of like liverwurst. I never eat liverwurst, whatever. But when I'm thinking about my dad, I'll have some liverwurst.
Dan, you look like you're standing, but I think you're on the couch.
But listen, Beth, let me tell you something. You take some liverwurst on some matzah with mustard, forget about it. I mean, you want to kill yourself. It's delicious. So how does somebody buy your book?
Do you eat any brain food?
Brain food?
Food that's good for your brain. And don't ask me what that would be. I was just curious.
I don't eat much.
You've been eating plant-based.
I've been a human my life, so I've been eating food. I've gotten back into working again. Finally, get back into places, and so I'm trying to rekindle business again. And so I have this little cold calling program. By the way, everybody needs to get the 7-day cold calling blitz. If you're still in, put that link on there for the salesenergizer.com for the 7-day cold calling blitz. I'll send you the book. Just pay shipping. $15 for shipping because the books cost. Now I'm losing $10 every time I send it out. Anyway, right. So I'm cold calling a lot. And what I do is I have this thing. I'll cold call for an hour, and then you do 20 push-ups. And then you cold call for another half hour, then you do 20. By the end of the day, you're doing 100 push-ups. Feel great. I mean, talk about brain food. It makes you feel great. And then another thing I discovered.
Wait a minute.
Another thing I discovered.
You're doing more than 100 push-ups. I'm doing the math. If you do 10 push-ups after every call that you make, you've got to be.
No, every session. You go.
Oh, okay.
But I'll do 100 a day.
Right.
But what was I going to say? That coupled with fasting all day long. So you don't eat anything all day long. And what I found is, because you're not using all that energy for digestion, you have tons of energy at the end of the day. Now, I may be completely wrong, but that seems how it's working with me.
Well, there is that intermittent fasting that's very popular.
Yeah.
I've stopped eating breakfast, and I just do lunch and dinner.
Really? Do you have coffee?
Yep. I do have coffee, but I actually do decaf. I've been decaf for 18 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people during this virus situation that have been doing a lot of drinking.
Oh gosh, don't talk to me about it.
Oh, really? I haven't had a drink.
Well, I heard some statistics that it's like alcohol sales are up like 80% or something.
Yeah. Oh, not here.
Yeah. No.
So Beth,
And
I posted in the chat again your book. We've had a couple of comments here about the book, about where they could get it. I posted again for those of you who are looking for an opportunity to get the book, as well as Emotional Intelligence. That's another book that Beth had recommended. But for sure, get Beth's book. The link for Amazon is there if you would like a good old-fashioned physical copy of it, shipped to your home, virus-free, as well as a digital version that's available for you from Amazon.
Shame on you! You brought it up again.
I didn't name it. I just and Dan used that V word too. So I felt like I had a little bit of a pass.
So you can't. Okay, I get it. All right.
It's a bunch of garbage.
I'm figuring out the rules now.
I'm done with that already. But you've been terrific. Okay, Beth, you need to leave us with one bit of wisdom, something we can get from nobody else, and how people can get a hold of you, and who your best customer is, and give it to us. Maybe like we've been begging for.
That's a whole lot there. Okay.
Yeah.
So one last bit of wisdom would be that a lot of leaders do not recognize and praise enough. And research shows that you need to be recognizing and praising 3 times as much as you are giving negative feedback.
Wow.
And I will say that in general, most leaders are doing the opposite. So a little technique that you can use is to put five quarters in your right pocket. Now, of course, this only really works when you're working in an office. So just remember that for when we get back to the office.
Got it.
Put 5 quarters in your right hand pocket. And when you see somebody that's doing a good job, it doesn't have to be great. What you're trying to do is you're trying to reinforce the behaviors you want to see more of, okay? And you do that, you take that 1 quarter and put it into your left pocket. The idea is to empty your right pocket into your left pocket by the end of the day.
That's good.
That's really great.
So it's a reminder.
I think you're awesome, you're beautiful, you're kind, you're smart and intelligent. And I'd move all the quarters, but I'm wearing a kilt. And so
you never know what you're going to get. I mean, you really don't.
Yeah.
I live in fear every second doing these things, Beth. You never know what's going to come out and what's going to be said. But that actually was very nice. And I agree. This has been really great for me as well. And for those of you who have been watching, I hope you've learned something. Let us know. Obviously, all the information's been scrolling along the bottom of your screen. Those that are watching on replay, Executive Velocity. We've got Twitter, we've got, the website, YouTube channel. Obviously, Dan's got all of his socials, the podcast, Beth's book. You really don't have any other option than to, contact us. But this has been incredibly valuable information for those
Before we leave,
leadership.
I'd like to also, I've got an offer out right now for leaders and small business owners. 30-minute pro bono coaching
nice.
To help those leaders that are stuck right now. I'm talking to a lot of them, and that is something that I am giving to the community.
Wow! And so how do they go about doing it? Just contact you on the site, or
yeah. There's just email me at beth.miller@executive-velocity.com, and we'll get you set up.
Excellent. That's awesome.
Well, Beth, I really appreciate you. We met a long time ago, and I'm just so glad to have rekindled this friendship.
Yeah.
Don't be such a stranger, and we're friends in Liger as well too. Here I am.
That's right. So I'm sure I'll be seeing you over at Liger. Yeah.
Okay. It's a deal.
Great.
And thank you so much, Mr. Producer Man Chris, who
Thank
makes
you,
it all
Deej.
happen, including
Thank
the
you,
Sales
Deej.
Energizer podcast.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Beth, once again. And thank you for everybody who joined us. You've got all the data. Just go out, reach out to Beth. Free 30-minute coaching session with Beth, executivevelocity.com. Thanks so much. See you guys.
David.
Bye now.
The day open.